like this. If I look silly, I don't want you laughing. Okay. Some of you know I've been sick for the last 3 years. I've been sick for the last 3 weeks, and it hasn't gone away. But I saw a very competent doctor this past week who basically punched me in the face and said, "You better take care of yourself." So I'm feeling better, but I still have sort of a weak voice, and I'm tending to cough too much. So I ordinarily don't like to use these things, but this way you all can hear me. Welcome to a town hall specifically on healthcare / Obamacare. I'll explain to you in a moment why we're doing this and why we're going to keep doing this throughout this campaign. I'm going to argue, gently, that there is no more important issue in this election than this. And when we're done in about 4.5 hours, hopefully you're all convinced. That was a joke. Okay, hey, second thing though, we always begin our town halls with, after the pledge, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Conservative, Liberal, whoever you are, we all agree that this is the greatest country in the history of the planet. It's the greatest country in the history of the planet because it was founded upon an idea. And we all love to complicate what that idea was. I like to just simplify it. One word, freedom. One word, freedom. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Which is why we always say the pledge at the beginning of our town halls. The second thing we always do at the beginning of our town halls is recognize the men and women who have died and been injured and served over the years to defend that idea, to defend freedom. So important. We've got men and women right now defending it right now. Happened 20 years ago, happened 40 years ago, happened 100 some years ago, happened 200 some years ago. It will never not happen. So Republican or Democrat, before we begin to debate Obamacare, let's be unified in just being as gosh darn thankful as we can be to the men and women who've served. If you have worn the uniform and served this country, please either stand up or raise your hand and be recognized. Hey, you thought we were all clapping for you as you just sit out here late. The beautiful thing about that is, virtually every veteran I know, the last thing they want to do is get up and have people clap for you. That's the beautiful thing. They do it for us so that we can acknowledge them. Wonderful, wonderful thing. For those of you who have been at my town halls, you know these are pretty informal. Not a lot of ground rules. There's only one ground rule, actually. A very simple ground rule. And it's called respect. Unlike a lot of members of Congress, I do this all the time. I made a pledge when I got elected. When did I get elected? 2 years ago. That there would be no member of Congress, Republican or Democrat, that holds more town halls than I do. And to date, we're doing it. And what we do is, we don't just invite conservative Republicans. We invite everybody. I'm on TV a lot. I'm in the news a lot. Sometimes it's not always good. If you'll notice, I'm on MSNBC and CNN and ABC a lot more than Fox. I like being with and talking to people who disagree with me. We go out of our way at our town halls to invite all viewpoints. This doesn't work. The next hour and a half won't work if we don't respect all viewpoints. We're going to talk about one subject. I think the most important subject our country is dealing with. And I don't know where you are on Obamacare. I don't know where you are on what we need to do about Medicare. I don't know where you are on religious freedoms, on any of those issues. I hope we have a number of different opinions in here. Respect every opinion. Respect the opinion of your illustrious panel. Try to respect the opinion of your congressman. Most importantly, respect everybody else's opinion. And then these can be kind of fun and kind of interesting. What we're going to do is I'm going to take 3 or 4 minutes and explain why we're doing this and talk about Obamacare very briefly, and then I'm going to give our panel a few minutes to just focus on whatever they want to focus on, and then we're opening this up to questions from you. This past week was a pretty big week, and hopefully everybody sort of paid attention to what was going on in the Supreme Court. We're going to find out in June what the Supreme Court probably decided last Friday. Wouldn't you have loved to have been in that room? Gosh! We'll find out in June. We're going to find out in June whether your government can make you buy something simply because you're breathing. We're going to find out if our government can do that. And then we're going to find out if they can or can't do that. If they can't do that, which clearly I hope they can't do that, we're going to find out what, if anything, they're going to do with the rest of Obamacare. This election in November is the most important election in your life. It's the most important election in the lives of your kids and your grandkids not even born. What we do in this election, I believe, and you can disagree with me, that's what these things are about. But what we do in this election, I believe, will determine whether we will still be able to control our lives or whether we will turn control of our lives over to government. There is no issue that crystallizes that like Obamacare. 2 years after the president signed this law, signed this bill into law, 2 years later right now, we know a few things. We know the American people like it a lot less now than they did then, and they didn't like it then. We know because small businessmen and women tell us Obamacare is the principal obstacle to them hiring people. We now know, and we should have known 2 years ago, that it's going to cost a lot more than what the president told us. Surprise, surprise. The CBO told us that a week or two ago. We now know, and we should have known this 2 years ago, that it will dramatically change our healthcare system. Maybe in many ways you all want, but it will dramatically and forever change Medicare. And it will dramatically and forever change the kind of health care we all receive. We now know 2 years later, and we should have known this then, that it's really going to impede upon some of our freedoms. Right? But again, we know that once we give the government power to do things, what do we give up? We give up some of the power to control our lives. Let me close with this point. And this gets me so angry. But I can't get angry. I'm just going to be a smiling candidate the next 7 months. But this gets me so angry. Everybody in Washington, every Democrat, every Republican, and the president, all of us know two things. We all know, number one, that we are 15.6 some trillion dollars in debt. We now owe more than we make every year. Think about that. And that if we don't do something about that debt pretty quickly, our kids and our grandkids will be stuck with that bill. And folks, I don't know about you, they'll never forgive us. Republicans and Democrats both know that. Number two, here's the dirty little secret. Republicans and Democrats and the president all know that if we don't do something about Medicare, something, it's gone in 10 years. It's gone. Every Democrat knows that. Every Republican knows that. This president knows that. Now, 4 or 5 days ago, again, today's Sunday, I voted for the Ryan budget, the Republican budget. I wasn't in love with it, but I voted for it. And without making any judgment upon the Republican budget, I want to just tell you two other things. Remember, we have a Democrat-controlled Senate in this country that has not passed a budget in 3 years. I think it's about 1,069 days. 1,069 days, the Senate hasn't even passed the budget. Now, I got on a bill 3 weeks ago that said if you're a member of the House or you're a member of the Senate and that body doesn't pass a budget that year, member of Congress, you don't get paid. That's the one thing. That's the one thing the House and the Senate are supposed to do every year. So I got a Democrat Senate that hadn't even passed a budget. I've got a president who a couple months ago gave us a budget. Remember the two things every Republican and Democrat knows? We're broke and Medicare is going to be gone if we don't do something about it. We have a president who gave us a budget 2 months ago. That, pardon me, never, ever, 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 ever balances. One day I'm going to say ever 123 times. He gives us a budget, think about that, that never ever balances. He also gave us a budget that doesn't even talk about Medicare. So here come the Republicans, oh, those bad, mean, evil Republicans. Here they come. It's like we're the doctor. And we hear, okay, the Senate's not going to do anything about it. The President's not going to do anything about it. Here we come. So we put forth a budget. And even we're so scared that even our Republican budget isn't supposed to balance for 20 years. Maybe sooner, but at least 20 years. But we put forth a budget that balances. We also put forth a budget. Here was the courageous thing, guys. Medicare, here's Medicare. We Republicans said, here, American people, I'm going to do something politicians don't do much. I'm going to be really honest with you. Medicare, if we don't do something about it, it's gone. So here's what we propose. You may not like what we propose, but we had the courage to say we got to do something about it. Because you know the rule, right? The minute a politician touches Medicare, here come politics. They're going to end Medicare as we know it. They're going to show a commercial of Paul Ryan pushing an old lady up over a cliff in a wheelchair. Here it comes. Here it comes. As I close, I believe that you and you and me and you and you and you have grown up. Young, middle-aged, and older, we've finally grown up. And we are now ready to be serious about our debt and the fact that we have 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. That's a damn good thing. Here's another darn good thing. They're retiring and they're living longer. We now are 95 years old. Watch this golf swing. We're playing golf now when we're 95 with new knees and new hips and new eyes. We've got it all. Good stuff. Who is going to pay for it? Politicians have been afraid for years to talk about that. No longer. We can't afford to ignore that any longer. And my friend Tammy Duckworth, who is filming me right here, hi Tammy. Tammy's going to ignore it. The president's going to ignore it. We won't let him. Republicans and Democrats, we can't ignore this any longer. If you want to ignore it and say, don't touch my Medicare, don't touch my government program, then be ready to write your grandkids a letter tonight. Write them a letter tonight that they'll get 20 or 30 years from now and apologize to them for the country you've left them. This is a whole new day. And Obamacare encompasses all of this. If we don't do something about Obamacare, it will forever impact our economy, our debt, our healthcare system, and our freedoms. That's a pretty big issue. So let's talk about it. Let's begin. I'm going to begin with our elder statesman, Dr. Bruce Bell from Barrington, Illinois. Now, I'm going to have a heavy hook. I'm going to give you each 3 to 4 minutes to opine on whatever you'd like. Dr. Bruce Bell.
Thank you.
Is that on?
Sir, I don't know. Is it on? Can you hear it? No, it's just not.
There it is.
Now it's on.
Talk into it.
Better now? Yes. Last week I managed to give a sermon. And Joe was in the back and he was coughing and trying to do this. I thought he was sick and then realized that I was talking way over time. So I promised him that I would be very succinct.
Hold that closer, Bruce.
How's that?
Perfect. Don't move.
Okay.
Oh, they'd like you to stand up, Bruce.
Stand up.
He's such a handsome doctor, we'd like you to stand up. There you go.
Okay,
hold that close.
One quick point. I think being the elder doctor here and a Medicare provider and a Medicare recipient, that I have both sides of the fence to play on. I have an extremely large medical practice in the Barrington area. And I will tell you that patients are really clueless on what's going to happen to them, irrespective of what happens over the next several months in Washington. They are like lemmings. They just kind of follow along thinking the world's going to be perfect as far as their health care is concerned. My job with them is to explain that it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect for me. It's not going to be perfect for them. And we spent a lot of time in the office talking about things such as this. One point that was made at last Sunday's town hall, a gentleman asked, well, we know that this system is not good if it passes. What do we have to look forward to? How are we going to do something about the problem? Well, obviously, there isn't anybody here, sitting here, or anybody in healthcare doesn't think that something has to be done. We're not ignoring that. It's just the method in which they approach to solve it that's not correct. So I will tell you the main point that I have with my patients is the doctor-patient relationship. That is so critical to me. That's the way I was trained. They are not training young men to do that today. 2% of the graduates in medical school are going into primary care. When I came out, it was well over 60%. That's sad because we're going to lose our providers. So I want you to keep that in mind. Talk to your doctors about it, and I'll defer to my colleagues.
Hello, hello. Dr. John Prunskis. Stand up, John, if you can.